What's up? This is Peng from LabVIEW by Example. Thank you for popping in on this video. Today I'm going to go over how to use one of the more important control mechanisms in LabVIEW, the case structure. Okay, so the case structure or switch is a common feature in programming languages where the program performs different cases which contain computations or actions depending on a variable value or expression. You can see this in action on this flow diagram here. So you have a variable value expression, and based on that, it can go into one of these cases here. So for this example, there's 3 possible places that the program can go. Okay, before diving into LabVIEW, let's see how a text-based language does this. So I'm going to bring up a Windows Form project. And in this example, I'm going to create a traffic light. So I placed down 3 buttons, and to simulate the lights, the program will set the color of each of these buttons based on a single string. So the red light should go on if the program detects the string stop, yellow for slow, and green for go. So let's take a look at the code of this form. To make things simple, I'll work inside the constructor, which is the method that runs automatically when the application launches. So the syntax for a switch is the following. You have the statement switch, and then you have the variable that you want to check on. Open up a curly brace, and then you have cases, and then the case label, which is the constant value that should match the data type in the switch selector. So I'm going to use a string in this case. So I want to declare a string value, string variable as what I want to check in the switch statement. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's make it stop. Okay. And let's go ahead and put in the case statements for each one. Okay, stop. Case slow. And case go. And then I'll also need a default case to catch any strings that don't match any of these 3 strings here. Okay, so I'll need to create, so the cases are created, so I need to set the color of each button in each case. But if you remember from my last video covering if then else statements, this might pose a problem if the control names need to change. So what I'll do is set the colors to the same, to some variables, and then set these variables, and then use these variables to set the color of the buttons after this switch structure. So let's go ahead and do that for the default case. So I have, let's declare some colors here. Okay, and in the default case, I want these to be the off colors. So I found some colors that kind of makes sense. Red, olive, and green. So one feature in C# is the break statement. And having the break statement in there causes the program to jump out of the switch block when the case is done. So this feature, you could, with this feature, you could actually not include the break statement and allow the execution to fall through to the next case, which would make sense in some situations. So that's why I have those in there. So let's go ahead and set these other cases. Let's go ahead and copy paste those, and let's change this to red, yellow, and a nice bright lime color. Okay. So case statement looks good, or switch statement looks good there, and we're setting all those colors there. So the break statement isn't really available in LabVIEW, so there isn't really a way to implement this fall through behavior. So you're just going to have to call NI and tell them to step it up. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the colors of the lights after the switch statement. So after that block. So those buttons need to be set. Back color of those buttons need to be set to whatever was set inside the switch structure. Save, and let's run this guy. So it's set to stop right now. Okay, stop is on. Let's do slow. Yellow. Go. Yeah. So what will happen if I set go to small letters or lowercase letters? Everything's off. This is the default case. So we'll see how LabVIEW can deal with this in an elegant way. Okay, so let's go and pop over to LabVIEW. Okay, so we're in the front panel. Let's do a Control E to get to the block diagram. So you want to left click, well actually right click to get to the palette, and then left click or hover over the structures and then find the case structure and then left click, and then left click drag to draw your case structure like so. Okay, so if nothing's wired to the case structure selector, which is that rectangle with the question mark, you'll see it's expecting a Boolean value. That's why it's green. Boolean is green. So you'll eventually associate different colors to data types as you work more in LabVIEW. The case structure provides the cases true and false because it's expecting Boolean. Totally makes sense. So now I want this case structure to accept a string. So how do I do that? So all I do is create a string constant and then wire that in to the case, the selector. There you go. So as you can see, the selector turned pink, which represents a string data type, and now all the cases are in quotes. Okay, so for our example, we need to put in stop, slow, and go, and default. So let's do that. I'll go into the first case, which is false. Use double click on here, and let's make this stop. Okay, let's go to the next case, slow. Okay, so then I'll need to create a third case for go, and the way I do this is I right click on this drop down here, say add case after, and you hit go. Finally, I need a default case. So the default case is where it doesn't select any of these or it doesn't find any of these strings. So I can create another case after and keep this blank and then go down here and make this the default case. And you see there, you have default there. So you can actually set any case as default, but the way it's done here makes sense for our application. Okay, we've got the case structure built up. We need to build some real code that does something here. So let's start with the front panel and create lights. So in LabVIEW, we have some dedicated user interface elements that make sense in industrial or manufacturing settings. So things like switches and LEDs are there for the picking. So what I want to do is grab a LED. Okay, let's name it red. And let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So I'll copy this and make two more. So you can just highlight it, do Control C, Control V. Okay. Or what I like to do is just highlight it, Control drag. Okay. And let's change the names of these. Let's make this yellow and green. Okay. So now let's take a look at the block diagram. Control E. So you can see these are Boolean indicators, as you can see with the TF in the terminal and that green color. So in LabVIEW's case, setting the value is either true or false. Actually, so setting the value of these terminals to true or false actually changes the color. So that's a little bit more convenient than what was done in the C# example. Okay, so back to the front panel, Control E. So during design time, which is what we're in right now, you can actually interact with the user interface elements to see what they do when you change their value. So to toggle an LED, position the cursor in the middle of the indicator. So make sure that the operating cursor icon, which is that pointy finger hand thing, is showing. Then click for on. So you can see goes on, off, on, off. Okay, got it. Good. Okay, I know that the colors aren't right. Yeah, that's what you're thinking. So let's go ahead and do that now. The green looks all good here. Green looks good. Okay, so let's tackle the yellow. So the way that you need to change colors is to right click, hit properties, and go to the appearance tab, and you've got a section for on and off colors. Sweet. All right, so I can click these colors to get a color palette, and it gives you a bunch of possible colors. So what I like to do is click on this more colors button here to get a window where I can find pre-selected colors. So let's do for on this nice yellow here, and then for off there's a muted yellow color here. Okay, and let's do the same thing for red. Properties, nice bright red color for on, and then a dark for off. Okay, so let me click, make sure that everything looks good. Okay, Control E to get back to the block diagram. Now all we got to do is set the value of each of these Boolean indicators based on the string. So I'll do the stop case first, which is the first one. So I'll create a Boolean constant. Let's go to Boolean and find the true constant for the first one. Okay. I could do a search on the palette again, but what I like to do is do the control drag thing. 1, 2. Okay, if I click on these, I turn these off. Okay, and go ahead and move them or wire them to the terminals. So LabVIEW creates tunnels from this case structure when you do that, and if they're hollow, which means that they're white inside, they're not filled in, that means you need to wire up value for all the other cases. So let's go to the slow case. I could go through the functions again to create Boolean constants, but I can also right click on the tunnels and say create constant. Okay, do the same thing for the other two. Create constant, create constant. So the yellow is going to be true in that case. Okay, so I'll do the same for go. Create constant, create constant, create constant. And then for go, green is true. Okay. So for the default case, I could do the same thing, but there's even a faster way. So what you can do, since you know that each case has pretty much the same code, you can say right click on the drop down and then say duplicate case. Okay, so now it creates a case with a blank label, and it has the same code as that go case. So in this case, I want it to be default case. Okay, so I want to make that false, but we already had a default case. So what we can do is go ahead and make this the default case. So right click and make this the default case there. And then the default case, we're just going to remove that one. So you can say we delete this case. Okay. Okay, so let's set the string to some value and see if this thing will fly. Go. Yeah. Yellow. Oh, not yellow. Slow. Slow. Red. Stop, I meant. I'm testing the default, I guess. Okay. So everything looks good. So everyone likes Easter eggs, right? So there is some extra hidden things you can do with case structures. Say you want a case to execute for more than one string. So all you have to do is place a comma and type the other string in quotes for that particular case. So say slow, I want to also key on that string as well. So you hit comma and write that string, so it'll key off those two strings. So let's go ahead and try that. Bam. And then another option too that was added to later versions of LabVIEW is the ability to do case insensitive matches. So the way you do that is right click and hit case insensitive match. So what that does is it allows you to allows this case structure to match based on the string without worrying about the letter if the characters are uppercase or lowercase. So the example in the C#, this would have gone to the default case since the G is lowercase, but here, since I set case insensitive, and you can tell with this little icon here, I'll go green. So if you wire a different data type to the case structure, there's some other neat features that the case structure will provide, but I'll tackle that in another video. Okay, congrats. You're now able to build VIs with case structures using a string as a selector. You're getting more dangerous as you go. I can just feel it. Okay, Mr. Dangerous, I know you have ideas on how to improve on my code. So what you got? So add comments or questions below, or better yet, head on to LabViewByExample.com to let me know about any better solutions that you might have. Thanks for watching. See y'all later.